What's that?
Do you have insurance on this car?
No.
It must be Eagle Man.
I've got something for you.
Oh, look at those low rates.
Hey everybody, we have a live audience. Hey, everybody say hi to the live audience. Yeah. They believe in themselves for sure. And they're live mostly.
For now.
Except for, well, anyway. Hey, we're back, everybody. Mastication Station, episode 52, believe it or not.
Wow.
Not arrested us yet. So, Lee is here to tell us where we are and who our sponsor is, because I have no idea.
Well, Tony, I'm glad you made the meeting last night.
Yay.
You missed that again. So we're in the Motor City Maniacs. We're in Detroit, Michigan.
Ooh.
We've got a lot of Detroitians. Detroitians here. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting. The theater that we're in is actually, earlier they had the Partridge Family revival in the theater.
Really?
So we have some of the audience members are still kind of holding out for what we're going to do. I'm not singing or dancing or anything. No. Yeah, I know. So, yeah.
I could play the tambourine, maybe.
Well, yeah, and I could manage. I'd be the manager.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And our sponsor, well, we have about 250 guests, so we thank the 250 guests.
Yeah,
and
250.
There is something underneath your chairs for after you leave. You'll want to make sure you reach under there and feel the non-gobby stuff. That's from the Partridge Family people, so I can't say. And our sponsor, I've been trying to track this guy down, and he's hard to get a hold of. It's Bo's Junk and Used Fly Strip Emporium.
Oh, used fly strips?
When I talked to Bo, he said, even though they might be covered with flies, there's always still sticky material. So don't throw them out. You can buy the used fly strips from Bo, and he'll be in the audience later on.
Yeah.
Wow.
So stick around.
Back to you, Tony.
So so it's not just used fly strips. What was the
junk?
Junk. Like what kind of junk are we talking
Well,
about?
I asked him if it's antiques, and he said, no, it's just junk. It's just junk.
Just junk.
Junk. So I think he drives around one of those little red pickup trucks and picks up people's junk and then sells it at the Emporium.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a living.
What?
The audience members, some of them in the back, are still singing those "It's a Don't Everybody" Partridge theme song. So that's not this.
How many of you ever seen a Partridge Family? Be honest. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
good.
So now we know the former members in here. Okay. So with us is Jaye Johnston. He is here. Hey everybody. Jaye Johnston's here.
Jaye.
So we're going to do sign language for applause, right? Is that like this?
Why were we doing jazz hands again?
Jazz hands.
Mainly because we can't hear the clapping, but we can see the hand going like this.
So you are a part of, I would call it the deaf community, right?
Correct.
So how long have you been deaf?
I was born deaf. Back in those days, we didn't have the technology that we do now, where they can just test newborns and know that they're deaf or hearing. And so at that time, they didn't know until I was 18 months old.
Okay.
And what had happened was, I'm the youngest of three boys. Bob is 3 years older than me, and Mitch is a year and a half, just right smack in the middle of us. Mm-hmm. And I assumed that Bob was at preschool classes, and so it was just Mitch and I. And Mom was driving, and she came up to these train tracks, and these lights were flashing. And Mitch and I was sitting in the front seat, because back in those days, the seatbelt laws were a little lax.
You just walk around in the back.
Well, we had seatbelts on.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
And so when we came up to the lights that were flashing, we took the seatbelts off, and Mitch stood up, and I'm over by the driver's side door. And I was following his cue, and he was looking towards the right side. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, okay, so I'm looking over this way, assuming that the train's coming this way. And all of a sudden, it came from the opposite direction, and it laid down the conductor laid this horn really loud. It scared Mitch half to death. He fell to the seat. And I'm still looking over there. And all of a sudden it comes, and Mom looked at us, and I'm sure Mom and Dad thought that I was a bit of a hardhead because I would never pay attention. But this time she knew that something was up. And so also we didn't have cell phones back in those days, and so she had to wait for Dad to come home from work. And she said, no, there's something up with Jay. He cannot hear. And so they had this great idea of getting a couple of pans and test me. And all three of us boys were sitting in front of the TV, and they came from behind me, bang, bang. And I'm still watching TV like normal. And Dad was like, okay, we need to get him checked out. And so they called up my grandparents, I'm sure, and some other people. And Grandma had an old pair of hearing aids, over-the-ear hearing aids, back in 1965 on there. I was born in 64.
64. Okay.
And so they tried to put those hearing aids on. And in those days, they did not have hearing aids over the ear that was strong enough, powerful enough for my hearing loss.
Oh, really?
And so Uncle Austin had, I'm sure, mild or moderate hearing loss. And the spectrum is that you either have perfect hearing, mild hearing loss, or moderate hearing loss, and those they require hearing aids, or they're severely deaf, so they're legally deaf, and I was profound deaf.
Okay.
And so what I had, my first hearing aid when I was 2 years old, was one of those body aids, and I also had a little strap that came across my shoulders and around the waist, kind of looked like a bra, you know, kind of,
An Iron
but it
Man
had a
thing.
pouch.
It's an odd bra.
And you put this hearing aid with a little flap on it, and it had a little wire that was connected to it, and it came up to my hearing aid, my ear mode. And so that's what I had, and that was strong enough back then. And I have that. I do remember seeing some pictures in preschool deaf classes, and so you could see that. And I don't remember if it was kindergarten or first grade. The teacher, the principal, and the superintendent, Mom and Dad were having a little discussion, knowing that, okay, there's this body aid, right, that's sitting outside the shirt. You don't want to put it underneath because obviously it'd be muffled out, you know. And so they were concerned about what other kids might be making fun of me or how they could improve that. And so they had a great idea of just getting rid of the strap, and it would go down my shirt, and that hearing aid would flap on in my pocket. And so it was down here, and so it was okay. And one of the things that helped also, and I would like to talk a little bit about me being deaf and growing up in a hearing family.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so my mom was very attentive. You know, she was very articulate, and she gave me a lot of attention to learn how to lip read. And that helped a great deal. And plus, my siblings had no qualms of correcting me. Maybe not when I was 2 or 3 years old, but as I get a little older, it doesn't sound so cute to still kind of not speak correctly. And so they would correct me sometimes. And I do remember one time, one of my siblings was correcting me on a certain word, and I would repeat it, and I still wasn't sounding right. And I said, come on, I'm going to show you. And they stood in front of a mirror. Look at the mirror and look at how I'm saying it. And then I would repeat it and realize I'm not saying it quite right. So sometimes I would be corrected again later and repeat it, and then they'd say, no, it's not this. And okay. So I'm going to wait till I get back to that mirror so I can look at myself. And so I learned how to speak from that, and learning to lip read. It got to where I could read my mom's lips from across the room. You know?
Really?
Yeah. So it was just, sometimes I didn't want to. You know how moms are.
Yeah.
So I remember one time, Mom was giving me a lecture about something that I was doing wrong, and so I would just kind of lean over and turn down my hearing aid like this, you know. But Mom caught me once, and so it never happened again after that. It's just not worth it. And so it was just something that I learned to lip read well. Obviously, just like anybody else, I wanted to be able to speak well. And wanted to be able to read and write, and so I learned pretty well.
So do your siblings still correct you?
Actually, yes. Now that you mention it, 2 years ago, believe it, it's something about the English language. It's kind of stupid sometimes. 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, I was talking to my son and a few others that were working in the coffee cafe at church, and the word I was corrected on was rapport. How it has a T at the end. So I pronounced it rapport. And they were kind of chuckling, and they were among themselves, and Tate came up to me and he said, it's pronounced rapport, not report. And I just thought, man, this English language is so stupid. How can I keep up with this, And he said, well, it's French. And I said, well, they can always adjust it, but, it's just funny, one of those things.
Like being
Even
in
2 years
Army
ago.
Corps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Army Corps, yeah. See? I did have to learn that one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, or bivouac, or just all kinds of words that's kind of hard. It's spelled B-I-V-O-U-A-C, but there's no W, bivouac.
What's a bivouac?
I think it has something to do with the Army Corps, where they have a place to sleep in.
Has to do with boats.
Boats. No, it doesn't mean boats. Isn't it a three-sided house or something?
That's a triangle.
Yeah. So
anyway,
I'm still learning even now, and so
Right.
yeah.
Somebody Google that.
It was a situation that was
Camping.
I had to learn to speak 24/7. Sometimes going to speech therapy helped with the specific little things like the R's and CH and SH, those kind of little basic things. But I did pretty well growing up. So.
Probably like the word death.
What?
Probably like the word death.
Oh, geez.
Tony has a hard time with that word.
So what are some things that the hearing community
That's an old joke.
should know about the deaf community?
Well, there's several things. One is the deaf people came up with the sign language. They made the sign language, and hearing people thought they needed to improve it. And they thought that it was important for us to learn signing exact English, what they came up with, SCE. And for an example, if you want to see, this is the sign for see. You point out your eyes and you're looking at it. And hearing people thought we have to put the first letter in first. This is the letter for S. I said we're going to do it this way. And it just really made it kind of ugly.
Is that a bad word in another language?
Yeah. It just really made the whole language kind of ugly. Another one is look, just going like this. Oh, we got to put the L in front of it, so we're going like this. And it's just like, so it just made it kind of complicated, hard for us to really follow along. But that's kind of a basic, one of the things that was kind of hard for us.
Hey, Tony, you and I have been doing that forever.
I know it.
Another
You
one
in the back.
is
You.
sometimes hearing people,
I know.
when they find out somebody like me is deaf or someone else, they don't really have the concept of deafness, and so they speak up louder, or they over enunciate and talk like this.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
It's just embarrassing for one, and what they don't get is we're deaf. Understand we're deaf. It doesn't matter if you yell. But it is sometimes embarrassing. I remember one person I was talking to, and he knew me well enough, and I was talking to someone else right before I talked to him, and she was a lady, and she was real nice, and she communicated the best that she could. And when that guy came up to me, he knew me, and she went. I just thought,
He snorted.
no, there's that kind of thing. So it's one of those things you have to just kind of overlook. Okay, that once they get to know me better, and they realize they don't have to talk like that. Another thing, this is kind of a big thing that I learned years ago, decades ago, is that a typical hearing person hears the entire English vocabulary, the entire vocabulary, once every 7 years.
Oh, really?
Typical.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so you might
he
repeat.
He doesn't.
Every 2 years I hear the whole thing,
So
including all the
14 years,
slang and
It might take
cuss
them a little
words.
while. But typically a deaf person never does throughout their entire lifetime, because we can't listen to the radio. We can't listen to the background people are talking while I'm talking to one person at a time. And so typically, I should say, we never, throughout our entire lifetime will hear the entire vocabulary. So it's just one of those things that, through reading or developing that with one person at a time, that we learn.
So maybe someone in the deaf community wouldn't know as many words as someone who can hear.
Correct.
Okay.
And so, that's a little complicated, but we do the best we can.
Yeah, so you're a part of a ministry called 2 for 98.
Correct.
Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, 2 for 98 is something that my wife and I kind of developed through the discussion about ministry. I always wanted to know what God's plan for me in my life. Why that I grew up in a family of music. Mom and dad were singers, and obviously all of my siblings learned how to play the piano and musical instruments and singing. In fact, I remember one time at church in the choir, Mom and Dad, both of my brothers and their wives and my sister were all in the choir. And I'm sitting out here in the pew. And I think for a deaf person, I sing pretty good. But I don't know if you want to hear me sing. I might be as good as him.
You going to do some right now?
Yeah. Thank you. But and so I've always wondered what God's plan for me in my life was. And so I knew that deaf ministry was important to me. And one time I heard that only 2% of the deaf have been exposed to the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Really?
To make that decision of whether to accept him or not. And that kind of bothered me, and I think naturally it would for anybody. 98% have never been reached for Christ.
Really?
And I would remind you that some of them grew up at church. No interpreters, no idea of what it was like to understand what's going on. I remember myself, for example, how I would be kind of bored and I'd be moving my feet around, bumping my feet on the pew in front of me. Mom would be like, oh. So you can imagine a deaf person being bored at church, and now they're adults, they're like, church is boring, I'm never going back to church again. And so reaching them for Christ is not going to be like trying to invite them to come to church. We're going to have to reach out to their level and let them show love and respect and kindness, and maybe share our faith with Jesus that way. And so, again, 2 for 98, 98% have never heard the gospel. And even in that 2% who have accepted Christ, they're not being discipled well. And so we don't have options or some time to be able to teach them more about what it's like to be a child of God and growing in their faith. And so a lot of them look at Jesus as their Savior in Christ, but not their Lord and King.
Interesting.
And so that's a process where my wife and I sat down, we started this ministry, and we now have a non-profit organization. So now we have the 501c3.
Okay.
And so we just want to find ways that we can reach out to the deaf people in the community.
So is there a website that people go to, or a Facebook page? How do people get a hold
It's kind of in the early stages right now, so we're not quite there yet. We're using Broadway Christian Church as a guinea pig.
Thank you.
And we want to be able to establish the deaf ministry there. We're having apparently 50 people from the hearing church came to this class last Thursday.
Oh, good.
To learn sign language. And Pastor Ryan and the staff and board are adamant that the church becomes more bilingual.
Yeah.
Learning sign language and maybe learning some Spanish too for the Spanish community, but definitely learn sign language and be more inclusive with the deaf. And so with that in mind, it would impress on us like, wow, they really want to know us more. They want to be part of, allow us to be part of the community and not just be an outcast or an isolated group.
I think we have a little challenge. Are you ready for a challenge?
Sure.
Is it your bedtime yet?
No problem.
Not yet. So we're going to do a little challenge here. I think that you and I are going to compete. We're going to look at the monitors, and let's see who can name that classic Dolphins player first.
Okay. I probably only need the number. I don't need to see the face.
Yeah, you don't need to see their face?
Whoa.
So let's see who wins this. We have 5 players to look at. Let's see player number 1 here.
Larry Zonka, my favorite
I wasn't
player.
even ready.
He's my number 1 favorite player all time.
All right, was it Larry Zonka, Otto? Was it? Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, player number 2.
Mercury Morse.
Who is it?
Mercury Morse.
Mercury Morris?
Mercury Morse, number 22.
You're fired.
Oh.
Oh, Paul Warfield.
Oh, he had the wrong guy.
Okay.
He had the wrong guy.
You had the wrong solar.
Paul
He had the wrong
Warfield.
solar.
He was number 42.
Okay, so it's 0 to 2. Okay, so I got to try to get one here. Okay, so number 3. It is
Me.
Lee Daly.
Nick Buonacani.
Oh.
All right, who is it? Yep. Yep. 3 to nothing. I got to get something here. Okay.
That's a sandwich.
Okay. Here's number 4. I think it's 4. Did I count 4? Yep.
4?
It's
Bob Greasy.
Okay, who is it? No, I'm sorry. It's Grice. I'm sorry. No, he got it. All right, number 5. Dan Marino.
Dan Marino.
Yeah, I got one. You know why? Because I made that, so I had to get one. So 2 for 98 ministry. We'll be looking out for that. Okay. So if everybody thank Jay Johnston for being here. Thank you. We'll be right back, everybody. After this, if you come back, we will be here. Maybe. See ya.
Yay!
God bless you.
Don't forget your phone.
Yeah, I don't forget that. Mom was giving me a lecture about something that I was doing wrong, and so I would just kind of lean over and turn down my head like that.